Blair Littlejohn from the Office of General Counsel.
Frank Barbieri, School Board.
Alyssa Dobbin with the Audit Committee.
Bob Bliss, Office of Inspector General.
Randy Logan, the IG's office. We'll go ahead and go back there. Great. Dave Talley, Audit Committee.
Teresa Michael, Inspector General.
Carrie High, Counsel for Inspector General.
Joyce Edison, Executive Assistant.
Morgan Fagan.
Michael Dixon, Audit Committee.
DeAndre Campbell, Audit Committee.
Okay, in the back.
Christina Daniel, Inspector General's office.
Dwight Walton, Apple Legal Biometrics.
Okay, thank you. And I want to welcome our newest school board member, Edwin Ferguson. It's sure nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, are there any additions or changes to the agenda, Terry? Okay, if not, I'll accept approval of the agenda.
I'll motion to accept the
Have a
agenda.
motion,
DeAndre second.
second, and discussion. All in favor? All opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, take a minute and review the minutes of the January 13th meeting. And after you've had a chance to review those, I would accept a motion to approve.
I have a comment on the minutes per minute,
All right,
please, before the motion. And it's an administrative thing. It's it's page 3 at the bottom. It's a big paragraph, last sentence. Mr. Dixon asked that this report come back to the committee. I think there should be a response of what the response was, that it will come back, and it's part of what we talked about. That should be included in the minutes. Now, I don't know if we said it would come back in 6 months, or I don't recall the answer, but the answer should be part of the minutes.
No problem, we can make that addition to I believe that I said that we would bring it back in the 6-month follow-up.
Yeah, I think that was 6 months,
Right.
right, correct.
Right, and we can add that to the minutes.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay, with that revision.
Motion to
any other
accept the
questions?
minutes as presented with the additional information.
Seconded, Weigel.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passed 5-0. Okay, next, any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Inspector General report. Terry? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me now. And all I ask for is fairness. As a small minority-owned business in Palm Beach County, from Palm Beach County, I was not even given an opportunity to come work. When I brought it to the district attention in 2021, nothing happened. When I got my attorney involved, calling to the district, you know what, Dwight, you're right. We screwed up, so we're taking it from him, but we're gonna make you bid for it. And I pretty much gave the service to the district to get the business. But one of the main problems we have, again, is compensation payment. It's unbelievable, which I have a copy of it for the board itself. The district, and I personally contact several charter schools in Palm Beach County. We're a statewide provider. We're based out of Palm Beach County. When I contacted the charter schools, they advised me that the police department told them to go to field print. I didn't know the district was into solicitation for a national company when we're local. We've been in service since 2007. I'm a 27-year retired state trooper, so we're here. I wasn't even given an opportunity. That is my gripe. You know, everybody's supporting small minority-owned businesses, but the district looked over my company completely with no compensation. Over the 5 years period, Fingerprint, Mobile Fingerprinting LLC, which is contracted for field print, over the 5 year period, he made over $200,000 with no contract, no bid. His contract consisted of a memorandum and a purchase order, but they make me jump through loops. And that's my problem here. So again, with the results of the council investigation, my gripe is not the piggyback. Even though we could have accommodated the district, even better than the police department doing it now, but I need help. And I'm just asking the board to relook at the investigation. Again, my question is, how can one individual pick a provider and use them for 5 years and nothing happened? You have HR, you have diversity, it wasn't even considered. And I have the documents for 2018 and 2020 where this individual took personal negotiation. And she advised the district of that. I didn't know that can happen. So, thank you for your time, please.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your concern, sir.
Is this something that either, just picking on some keywords there, is this something that our council need to refer to? And is this something we need to even entertain at this juncture?
We have the report that's going to be presented that he's speaking to. That'll be presented by Mr. Bliss and Aida, who are from our office, and then you can ask questions of both the district and our findings at that time. The speakers are just set up ahead of time, so we'll be speaking to some of the things that he brought up, the gentleman brought up.
That's just so it's perfectly clear, that's number 8 on our agenda?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Also, just one more item, and this is just a person that lives in Palm Beach County, a taxpayer. The changes that's going on in the system now for fingerprinting K through 12, which is fingerprinted under VEX. The change that DCF made, state of Florida, that now you have to be fingerprinted under DCF. It's a picture included. It's more in depth because you have to upload some information to obtain the screen ID number. My contact with the district is not taking this serious for the change. It's frustrating to me to be inside for the provider and see what's going on. And Palm Beach County is behind the ball already. The changes are already in effect, and no steps are made, in my opinion, to adhere to the changes. It's more focused on trying to get an extension. So the powers that here that has anything to do with the district for is the change, please look into it, because of the fact that Palm Beach County is gonna get left behind and embarrassed because they're not gonna be in compliance. That is one of the biggest problems we have now because we're not getting paid. We can't submit. And it's not just one time, it's this period of time that this has occurred. So with what's going on with the change, is Palm Beach County gonna be ready? In my opinion, as a professional, no. And I think somebody should look at the transition from VEX to DCL, please. I'm gonna leave some documents here, basically what I spoke on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for giving me a minute, well, more than a minute. And I look forward to speaking with you guys again.
You will. Thank you. Okay, are there any other public comments? If not, we'll move on to the Inspector General update. Terry?
All right. We have a couple of administrative issues that we're going to go through today. First, we're going to have my evaluation. We have a couple of concerns I have to bring towards the board, the committee, and get your input on how you would like me to proceed. And then we have the draft report to discuss that the gentleman was just speaking about. But if we could start with my evaluation and get the final vote on that.
Okay, is there any discussion from any of the board members?
This, just for clarity, if we're gonna vote on this report, this was prepared by whom, this report?
The draft report that we're going to discuss later on,
No, this that we're gonna vote on.
this is from Dr. Miller. All the points were inputted through either Google or directly to Dr. Miller or Joyce. And then it's inputted into the consolidated findings or the accumulation scores. And so we'd like everybody to take a look at, make sure those scores are correct, that what you have put in, if there's any comments that you'd like to make. But then we vote on to make sure it is accurate and reflects what you all had inputted into the Google Docs.
Mine appears to be accurate.
Mr. Chair, I offer a motion to accept this excellent evaluation by our Inspector General from the Audit Committee.
Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the support of the committee. I truly do. Again, we have two issues, and they're having to do with referrals that the IG office does to human resources. There are two categories. One are complaints that are received by the IG through a hotline and are referred to OPS, which is Office of Professional Standards, for their EEO investigations for review and final investigation. The second one is completed IG investigative reports with substantiated or unsubstantiated findings are forwarded to OPS for determination if they're going to take any disciplinary action or any corrective actions of any kind. On both of these issues, we've had some problems with responses or no action being taken by HR OPS. One of the complaints, normally what we do is we will forward these to OPS. It'll be done in an email. They'll acknowledge that they received it. And we follow up every 90 days with an email asking what the status of those different reports are. One of the issues has gone back to 2019. And we will send an email saying it's 90 days, what's going on? The response is it's open, it's active, we're working on it. Since I have stated that this is not acceptable, we can't have these things go on indefinitely, I said I need to bring this to the committee. We have found they are taking more action, and now we're being told on 3 cases that they are closing their investigations administratively because the staff have retired, even though they've had it for a couple of years. To me, this is problematic. You've had it for 2 years, and we can't just close these things. You're going to set it up where we send something to you and it's going to age out, and you just now close it after it's been sitting there. These are EEO complaints. They're serious matters. They should be looked at. The other issue is when we send a completed investigation, they've been sitting there sometimes dating back a year, and we're waiting for some action to be taken. And when I said I'm no longer going to wait on it, we finally got a response saying that I just received the assignment, even though we referred it to them in July. So for that situation, I am proposing that the IG's office will only wait 90 days before we will post these completed investigations on our website. That gives OPS 90 days to determine what action, if anything, they take. Now, on the first issue on the EEO matters, it's up to the committee. We can bring HR in and they can explain what happened and why these cases sat around for a couple of years and, now they're being closed out. We can present this to the board and let them know that this has happened and it's up to the school board what they want to do. Or I can accept that they're going to administratively close these matters based on the staff are no longer employed. Those are the three options that I could come up with for the committee to consider.
I have a couple of questions then. Excuse me. This OPS office, what is that office of?
Office of Professional Standards.
Okay, and they're in the HR area?
Correct.
Okay, and who do they report to outside of your investigation? Who's their direct report?
The OPS director reports to the chief of HR, Human Resources.
Okay, is that chief of HR aware of what you're bringing to us today?
Yes, I have spoken, this started with the previous HR chief, and we started working on that and trying to get the issue addressed. And they had to get a case management system in place because they said things were getting lost because of the case management. The new HR director said that we have a case management system, we're trying to address it, and we've been waiting for those issues to be addressed. And now we're receiving a response that these things are being closed out.
How long has the new director been in place?
Ms. Rieger has been, maybe just a year?
I believe a year,
So that person's just starting to get acclimated, probably?
correct. And the case management system was just implemented in January
Of 23?
of '23.
Ah,
So it was in process, so it was finally, go live was in January.
I don't know about anybody else in your comments, but I would think you want to give them some time here to address what you're talking about, specific cases. You can't do anything about the cases that have been dismissed. That's history. I mean, it'd be interesting to know, did they just manage it away so they retire and then you don't have to deal with the case? However, if this is a serious matter, and obviously it is, obviously it is, I would go back to the HR director, and this is my opinion, I'm only giving an opinion, I'm not making a motion or anything, to give them time to rectify or give you a course of action that they're going to address these things. I don't know if 60 days or 90 days, I don't know, I can't speak to that, I'm not an HR person, I don't know the depth of these issues, but I would allow them time to get up to speed, especially in January. I mean, this is only February, 17th? So, and give them some time to address this, but tell them we're going to revisit it at a certain time, whatever, I would say, at the end of June or something, see what they propose. That's my comment. I mean, that's what I thought.
As an additional or question or comment, I would imagine some of these ones they want to just kind of retire or brush away. I mean, if this person retired, they're getting some sort of retirement benefits that maybe they wouldn't have been eligible for if these would have been timely reviewed. So I don't know if I think forgetting them is the best option.
Well, I'm first.
You mentioned the past, I'm just saying.
I'm not looking at cases now. I'm looking at the procedure to be implemented. Handling the individual cases for any issues that I agree with what you just commented on. Maybe they shouldn't be getting what they're getting because of what they did and had they been pursued. But you can't judge that. I can't judge that. But we're here as a committee just to and adhere to policy, and we need a policy here. So I'd send it back. And you want to go after people for, I don't know, that's different. That's the board's issue to see where you want to go with that. It's not our committee.
Out there that have not been addressed.
Okay.
We have 3 cases that are being administratively closed because the staff have retired, that we know of. We also have, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're still waiting final action, and then there is, I believe, 17 other cases that they are now looking at, and they're gonna give us follow-up on, that are EEO matters.
Which of these cases is the most delinquent? Or how delinquent is?
2019, I think, is the oldest case that they have.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if we could, let's accept it. I would recommend that we accept the 90 days, because what it does goes back to some other things when we've had finance in here talking about things and technology that slip through the crack. This is one where we can, I think our Inspector General is taking a preventative measure of things slipping through the crack and having to come back, and we're looking at each other saying, well, wow, we didn't know, what happened? So I think having that 90-day, a calendar, that policy in place would prevent it. Now, how we do it, an additional step could possibly be, the Inspector General could come back to us in 60 days prior to that 90-day and give an update and saying, these are about to go live in 30 days. So I guess I don't want to get into the cases or the different pieces of each one or the individual or their retirement or any of that stuff. We just put the policy in place, and HR will know they need to give some type of feedback. Even if it's just a letter asking for an extension, they need to communicate with the office. That's just me. So I don't.
No, I agree with you, as long as there's a way they can get an extension or something where if we could tell it's actively being pursued, that they need that extension, but I agree wholeheartedly with him.
I tend to agree too. I think 90 days is a decent number at this point, and for sure they need some type of parameter, or this can go on and on indefinitely. So I don't know what Leandre, would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Comments, I'm sorry. Frank?
Mr. Chair, I mean, if the audit committee is not interested in figuring out which one of these employees left without having any kind of any kind of consequences, and there's other cases that may close by the time this 90-day period comes and these other employees go, then I ask that the IG bring this before the board at the next board meeting so that the board can take action, because I certainly am interested, I think my colleagues would be interested in knowing which cases are out there that are about to expire, and we can't just close cases and say we didn't have time and we just overlooked. So if the audit committee's not interested in bringing in the HR director to answer about those cases, then you need to bring it before the board.
I don't think that's what we're saying.
Well, I guess I don't understand what you're saying. You're going to put a process in place, but I'm worried. I agree there should be a process in place, but I'm more worried about the outstanding ones that have been closed because they weren't done in time, and the other 5 that you just mentioned that may close before this 90-day period comes around, and these people are going to retire too. So we need to have answers before those people leave payroll as to what they're responsible for and what the consequences are for their actions.
Right, what I can do is I can get a formal list from the director of HR and get a actual, more than just an open, active investigation, because that's what the responses we're receiving, it's open, it's active, or we're closing it because the people retired. And get a to-be close date, a determination or a projection on when they believe that these cases, because EO cases do take a long time. I mean, admittedly, I've done them before. They are very complicated. They're usually not easily done. But there are a lot of legal issues, and I'm sure that the General Counsel's office would agree that with EEO matters, there are certain legal guidelines that have to be met. And so we do need to address that. So let me get a formalized response from HR on where they are, where they project these things to be done, and if there's anybody that's due to retire or resign prior to these things being done Would that be acceptable as far, and then bring that to the board?
Sure, I just think the board needs to be aware of this.
Yes. Okay.
I would like to amend my motion with that in mind. I don't want to let those cases go by, so they could come back to the committee for us to address at the following meeting, the March 17th meeting. We still are interested in those cases. At the same time, putting a policy in place for the 90 days, but not disposing of those cases. So we're still interested in them. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't want that to walk away with that implication. Just still putting a policy in place.
That's a revision to your original
That is a
motion?
revision to my original motion.
Okay. With the revision of that motion on the floor, is there a motion to approve?
I'll approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Weigel, second.
Discussion?
Exactly what is the motion? The motion is,
The motion is to bring those cases, outstanding cases, back to the March 17th meeting with the HR director. In addition to hearing those cases, we're also creating a 90-day response policy for cases.
thank you, thank you. I'll second the motion.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, Terry, has this already been,
Yes,
that's been discussed?
correct.
No.
Now we go to number 7.
Okay, we go to number 7 then, which is the update of the internal funds audit as of February 10th. That's tab 7.
And that would be Mr. Law.
Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Michael and Mr. Talley. As of yesterday, there's only 4 more schools to go, and then all 4 schools the fieldwork are in progress. And all those fieldwork should be done by next Tuesday. And starting from then, we will start compiling the statistics and so forth and prepare the management letter for Ms. Frederick's office reviews and management response. So hopefully we will be able to get the final management letter ready for this committee's review and approval in April.
How about March?
I'm sorry?
How about March?
Why then I need to ask Ms. Frederick whether she would be able to prepare it in time.
Okay.
The problem is they have 20 business days to respond to the draft report, so that
Okay.
gives us practically a month.
I understand, thank you.
And we'll try to do it as quick as possible.
But as always, Ms. Frederick's office is always very responsive to addressing all those issues and management responses.
Okay.
Are there any questions of Randy? If not, I'd accept a motion to approve the internal funds audit as presented.
I'll make a motion to
Is
approve.
there a second?
Andre, second.
Discussion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, next we'll move to contract reviews, a draft report of the procurement review of fingerprinting and background check services.
This will be presented by Ms. Aida Smith of our contracting and procurement section.
Good morning.
You hit the button?
Okay, good. All right. Yes, generally I work on construction and contracts. This particular review is on the procurement of fingerprinting, background check services. The objective of this review is, it actually came in as a complaint from Mr. Walton, who you heard from earlier today. And the primary objective for our office was just to assess the adequacy of the procurement and contract award processes used for this particular fingerprinting. Okay, the scope of this review is from January 2018 through to June 30th, 2022. And it consists of 3 different types of contracts. So one of them was the bid, 22C, 816C, which is the piggyback with field print. And this was a piggyback that the district piggybacked from Broward County for fingerprinting. Then we have the RFQ, which was Alpha Omega Biometrics Division, and this was a request for quote. So Mr. Walton, who I wish he would have stayed so he could see this broken down and explained a little better, He actually has several purchase orders with the school district, currently 2 that were just issued in January. And then we have the direct negotiation, which is with the mobile fingerprinting company that also provides mobile fingerprinting services. Okay, and we have an MOU with, he has an MOU with the district. Okay, so this is just a little background. Prior to March, fingerprinting and badging processes for district employees, charter schools, and vendors were performed by district staff in this building. And in 2021, district leadership decided to outsource these fingerprinting and services to allow for a greater number of locations to be more flexible for district employees. And on March 24th, the district piggybacked off a contract with Broward County, which is what I mentioned earlier, and the company is Fieldprint. So there are several areas that we reviewed regarding these 3 different types of procurements. One of the areas was to see if the contractual process was complied with district school board policy. And we found that the processes for the 3 different types were mostly complied with. And then we have number 2, which is a piggyback contract, included cybersecurity insurance. And this came up in Mr. Walton's original complaint that his contract required cybersecurity insurance. However, we did find that the purchasing department made sure that the piggyback contract also included cybersecurity insurance, which is one of the requirements. And number 3 is that the piggyback contract was reviewed by our own Office of General Counsel, which is just pretty standard that they review all of the contracts that come through. And number 4 was the purchasing department has a piggyback procedure checklist that they go through to ensure that all of the components have been reviewed. So I'll move on to conclusion number 2. And this conclusion states that written procedures related to seeking and obtaining input from the Office of Diversity prior to awarding a piggyback contract were not followed. So we have School Board Policy 6.143 relating to diversity and equitable utilization in business, and it requires the procurement process to promote diversity and equitable utilization of MWBEs and SBEs. So purchasing is to provide a written notification of new solicitations, and they generally give about 15 days for that department to respond. So in our research, we didn't find sufficient evidence to confirm that Office of Diversity was given adequate opportunity to provide input on this particular contract. Okay, and our recommendation would be for the purchasing staff to continue to collaborate with the Office of Diversity prior to entering a piggyback contract, just to be sure that they are complying with the Office of Diversity School Board Policy 6.143. Conclusion number 3 is a breakdown of the purchase orders that were issued to mobile fingerprinting, and this is starting back from 2018 through to 2021. There's a process of a direct negotiation by the purchasing department to this vendor. Well, what we discovered was that although a memo stated $50,000 was the anticipated spend, the actual purchase order amount rose to $67,000. And in 2019 and 2021, the anticipated spends are over the $50,000. And although the last 2 years, on this chart anyway, the purchase order did not exceed $50,000 or $60,000 or $75,000. So this is based on our Florida Administrative Code 6A.10, okay? And basically it says that there should be a competitive solicitation process or 3 or more sources if it exceeds $50,000. So back in 2018, it was anticipated that they were going to spend $50,000, but the purchase order exceeded that amount. So I'm going to continue. Hence some of what Mr. Walton is mentioning, that some of these purchase orders are exceeding.
Excuse me, can I interrupt for a minute, just so I'm following you?
Yes.
Is it because we have a purchase order in excess of $50,000 that there was no third-party solicitation for bids? Is that the issue here for Mr. Walton? Is that the issue?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure I understood the issue.
They kept saying the minority too, so I'm assuming their previous slide was also an issue, because you said there's not sufficient evidence that the Office for the DE&I.
Okay, so that's a
Right.
separate issue
Okay.
because.
I didn't know if he was commenting on that too. I thought maybe I heard a little bit of both of that, or no, it was this.
No, I'm just commenting on a dollar amount, it's first trigger.
No, I meant Mr. Walter, not you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because he mentioned minority-owned business several times, so I thought maybe he was, yeah, both, okay.
Well, what I want to explain quickly on this particular contract is that this was an MOU, a memo of understanding, for this particular company to provide the services. Now, the MOU states that this is a contract that can be, it's for 5 years. It can be renewed every year. So it's a direct negotiation that started in 2018, but the language in the MOU states that they can renew every year. So if this amount were $25,000, they would renew every year for that amount.
And
In this case, it did increase.
if I can just add, so there was an expectation by the end user, the department that needed to utilize these resources, that they weren't gonna spend more than $50,000. And so the purchasing department can only go by what the end user department is saying. So then throughout the year, that was where they kept adding to the purchase order because they were using more resources. So, and so that's where we did concur to say, yes, this actually should have been bid out. Had we known, it would have been bid out if we thought, if we were told that they were going to spend more than $50,000.
So it's,
And so that is why eventually we did do an RFQ and it was awarded to Mr. Walton.
great, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. All right, so our recommendation is for the Director of Purchasing to remind staff of the competitive solicitation requirements of the Florida Administrative Code. And that is all I have. Do we have any other questions? Yes.
Any questions, comments?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Can you go back to that slide with the dollar amounts on it? So in 2019, the anticipated spend was $67,520. Did we have solicitation? So we didn't do it then either. So why would we start the year with a $67,000 anticipated spend and not follow the board policy?
It was an error in the purchasing department.
Okay.
It was because the MOU was signed in 2018, so it was something that was missed by our department.
And shouldn't we have a provision in the contracts from here on out that if it's not a competitive solicitation, that it cannot be increased?
Not to exceed.
50,000.
Yes.
Not to exceed.
Any additional questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On the previous slide, you said it did not comply with the 15 days. How many days it was, if it wasn't 15, was it 14?
We don't have any record of communication.
There was no written communication with the department, but because of the need, the immediate need, I don't know if you've ever, yes, I probably, you might have seen lines of staff at the start of school that would go all the way out the front door in order to get fingerprinted. That's what necessitated the need to say, we need to put a process in place for this upcoming school year so that we can get employees fingerprinted as quick as possible, because we were facing double our normal vacancy rate. And so we were going through a significant number of new hires. And so it was necessitated by the timing of it. So we did reach out verbally to the department, and we also did check on the website to see whether they had any vendors who could meet that need.
Is everything kind of closed with Mr. Walter now? I mean, he mentioned a lawyer, all that, like, is this kind of like, it's been settled with him, or is he still hoping it's gonna go further? I'm just curious.
It's my understanding that he has, he's looking, or he has indicated there might be a request or looking for some type of compensation for what he believes he was not awarded, so that's complete, nothing's been filed as far as I know. It's, just what he has spoken to us. He's been in daily contact with our contract oversight unit and procurement, so we've been updating him on this.
So is he an existing vendor that's owed money?
I believe there was some confusion on his part, and please correct me if I'm wrong. He's owed some money from Palm Beach County. And I think he was getting a little confused between we're not the county that does that's a different entity, we're the school district. He believes, though, that because he was not given the opportunity to bid, that he lost out on that money.
Damages.
Right.
Not compensation, damages. It's different.
Different, yeah.
It's very different.
Okay.
And so then what the thought here going forward is just kind of our bad, we'll do better next time, or is there something that we need to really suggest? Because obviously the fact that the policy is to go through the DEI, initiative, and then also getting bids over 50, I'm just curious.
Well, the contract that we have with him did go through the process, so he does have, there was an RFQ. He was awarded on that contract, and he is performing fingerprinting services for the district for after-school services.
And he is a vendor. He is a vendor.
He is a current vendor.
Of the school district.
Of the school
In
district.
addition to Palm Beach County.
Correct, and since 2021. So
Okay.
we did do an RFQ when we said, okay, yes, we should have bid this out, so we did.
Yeah.
He was awarded, and so he has been a vendor. What he mentioned was he came in and he underbid because he wanted to get his foot in the door. And that was something that he mentioned today. And then he also mentioned about the timing of payments, because there's been some disagreement where he would like to get paid at the time he submits the fingerprint, where we require that it's once we get it back from Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And so what we've done to expedite it is to say, okay, well, we're not going to delay it once we get it back from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. We're gonna pay you now versus making you wait 30 days.
Okay.
So that was the way that we tried to compromise, but there's still some to be paid as soon as it's submitted. So
Heather, he mentioned something about a 5% discount. He was providing, is that to accelerate the payment?
No, I mean, I
How was
believe
that
he was
fine?
saying, since he's not here, I can't
Yeah.
confirm, but I believe it's because he said he came in and he underbid it because he wanted to get into the school district.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get the bigger award that went from the piggyback from Broward, I guess, right?
Eventually, if that is something, because we were doing fingerprinting internally with the school police department. The school police department couldn't keep up with the volume that we have. We realized our county is larger than the state of Delaware, larger than the state of Rhode Island. We needed to decentralize the process, not only for fingerprinting, but also for drug testing, so that we could try to get the new hires, meet them where they're at, get them processed as soon as possible. So we did, when Mr. Walton did come to the board and speak, Ms. Garbisi and I spoke with him after the board meeting. We worked with Fieldprint, asked Fieldprint if they would be willing to work with Mr. Walton and add him to their cadre of fingerprint locations. They said they were, but the requirement was he had to use their equipment, and Mr. Walton wants to use his equipment, which is a business decision, and I understand that, but we did try to include him within that Fieldprint contract.
So does
Hey,
that?
Kathy, you had a question?
Yeah, just as an aside, I know that we were talking about employees, but you have to remember too that all the university students in the local universities also need to be fingerprinted in order to come into the school, whether they're observing or doing field work. So that added to the mix. And until then, until we've gone to this extra side, I mean, school police was doing an amazing job, but they were hugely overwhelmed.
I mean, if I just think broader from just this, do we have any idea of maybe how many other contracts got missed that didn't go over 50,000 bid or didn't properly go through the D&I channels? I mean, that would be my concern, right? If he brought this to our attention, and he was right? How many others are there? You know, that might be an issue. I mean, I know you don't know the answer right now, but I'm wondering if that's something we should be looking into probably, because that could be a bigger issue, right?
Yes, and that is something that we can look at as far as doing a, more of an enterprise audit of the purchasing over 50, what has been exception. And I know that this is an ongoing issue, especially with construction, where you have change orders, and that's a continual battle that you have with some of the contracts. And we can do one just, I wouldn't loop in construction, because that's different in itself. But we can look at just doing purchase over 50 that have not followed the procurement.
Yeah, with like purchase order changes.
Right.
It's a good idea.
Hey, Edith, did you have any?
Yes, I
Comments?
just wanted to make a statement regarding the invoices. We did sample about 20 invoices, and we realized that the amount that he invoiced us was the amount that the district paid. So there was no difference of a 5% or anything like that. I spoke with him on one occasion, and he mentioned the county, and I says, are you speaking of Palm Beach County School District or the county itself? So this is probably gonna take a little bit more, research, but as far as what we reviewed, we paid him consistently with what he billed. There was no difference.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, he also mentioned something about the equipment that we're currently using. His company is using equipment that's going to be required by the state of Florida. And he said something about we're going to be behind because the company that's currently doing it is not using that equipment. You have any idea what?
We are aware, and it's the level of the background checks. There's two different levels, a level 1 and 2, and I wish Chief Mooney was here, Ms. Rieger was here, but I know Ms. Rieger is flying back from the Council of Great City Schools today. I got back this morning, but the after-school program was required to implement that second level of screening prior to all district employees. So we're aware of that, and we're working on the process right now for expanding it to all district employees.
Thank you.
So his equipment doesn't do level, that other,
Right, it's an actual screening, and I believe it's screening outside the state of Florida, not just within the state of Florida. It's doing a more complete background check. So we are aware of it, and we are in the process to ensure that we comply.
okay. And my last question, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, could you bring that back to us when you find out what's going on, please?
Sure, yes, definitely.
As a follow-up? Thank you.
My last question, Mr. Chair. That's okay. Mr. Walton is in good standing with the school board, with the school district. He's a vendor in good standing as of today, correct? His contract is.
His contract, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, there were some assertions made in his comments that if we're able to mitigate, if not eliminate those, assertions that were made by Mr. Walters during his comments, but my brain is going to a diversity conversation that I don't think if we can mitigate or reduce, if not eliminate that conversation from this point forward, that's what I'm really asking and trying to get to with fingerprinting. So we know what was in the media earlier this week with one of our sister counties in regards to fingerprinting and background checks. So that's where my head is, and that's why I'm asking. I know it's a loaded one, as long as he's in good standing and we don't have a diversity issue, that may come with his company and this procurement, going forward, that's really where my brain is. Is there an option, is that going to happen beyond what we're talking about today? Is that a possibility?
I'm not sure what your question is.
Yeah, it's,
Contract expire, I guess.
In November.
In November. Is there plans to renew that? Do you know?
We will, oh, if that's.
it does get to yes, a little bit, but I'm just still having that diversity conversation, and I don't know enough about what, because the 15-day thing, and I'm still puzzled with that conversation did not take place, and I understand what was happening, but I'm just listening to him, and I just, like Ms. Smith said, I wish he had stayed so we could have that conversation with him.
So like Mr. Walton said, there are changes that were made by the Florida Department of Education in terms of the background checks. So the process he was doing was a different process than we were doing for all other employees. After school and pre-K it was a different, more extensive background check process. Now that's going to be required for all employees. So we will have to relook at our process district-wide to determine whether we will need to continue to have multiple vendors. So that's something we're going to have to re-examine, just because it's a new process now from the Florida Department of Education.
When did that process become effective? I'm just curious, do you know?
We received a communication on October of 2022, and then there's different deadlines as to when it needs to be.
So we're not past it yet?
We're not past the deadline, no.
Okay, if there are any other questions or comments?
Are you gonna ask for us to accept this report? Is that what we're gonna be?
Yes,
Like a normal report?
right, here.
With no,
We will follow up in 6 months on the recommendations, and then we bring that back to you.
well, it doesn't appear to me, before we ask for the vote, Mr. Chair, it doesn't appear to me, I mean, I understand the facts here. We messed up on part of it. We're compliant on most of it. We heard, this is, I think, one of the first times I've ever heard public comment, especially relative to this report. I guess what I'm saying is there's no response that we need to do at a committee level here, but accept the report as given. Is that correct? Is that what we're?
Yes, if you have a problem with how we handled the audit, or if we did not cover everything, or the review, if you believe that would prevent you from accepting the report as presented.
Okay.
But if you're happy with the process that the IG's office undertook, then you accept it, and then we follow up as far as any corrective action or recommendations. The district will respond as far as the issues that the gentleman was referring to.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
My only thought about accepting is, and I don't know, maybe it's in here a little clearer, is I think on the slide said insufficient data on the contacting, and in making our inquiry, it was none. Really, we couldn't find any. I almost think maybe we should make sure that that's clear, that it wasn't just insufficient, it was literally we didn't find any. I mean, just to increase the severity, and maybe it's in your actual written report, and that's just my thought, just to help kind of pound it, because I do think that's potentially a big issue for DE&I.
Okay, Aida?
The purchasing department stated that they made a phone call, not anything in writing, due to time constraints and changes in the district, so.
And we included that in the response, so it's very clearly written in the response that we said it was.
And the website.
And we looked at, and that way.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear about that.
It's in the response, so there will be, that response is included as part of the report, so there is documentation clarifying.
We also mentioned it in the body of the report that they made some effort.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I accept the, gosh, I just went blank. Accept the report as presented with the item coming back to us in 6 months.
Okay.
On the follow-up.
Yeah, I second or first, whatever.
Is there there's a motion and a second. Is that correct? Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Ada, nice job. You did a very nice job. Okay, moving on, the investigative reports, those were previously sent to all you committee members by Joyce. Are there any general comments to come before the committee? Yeah, Mr. Chair.
I just want the committee to know that at Wednesday night's school board meeting, which I try and put out of my mind, but Wednesday night's school board meeting, the board submitted the evaluation, and we approved an evaluation for the Inspector General. She got a 5 out of 5. So the board also authorized me to, as chair, to negotiate a new 4-year contract with the Inspector General. Her contract currently expires in June, so I'll be working with her to bring back a contract to the school board for an additional 4 years. Wanted you all to know that.
Wonderful.
Great, take care.
I have one more comment before we close. And this is administrative for the committee members. What type of insurance does the school district have to cover liability of a committee member? Not that that has anything to do with today's discussion. It's a general comment, a question. No. It's a serious question.
I can confirm that committee members are, I'm gonna have to go back and confirm that committee members are included in our policy. Because we do have standard DNO policies.
Right, okay.
And so but I don't know if committee members are included.
I would like to know that.
But there's
Maybe
also,
you can let us know at the next meeting.
I believe sovereign immunity also applies as well.
I don't know what that
For
means.
what was?
Just sovereign immunity, if you're, I guess, referring to decisions that are made during committees,
Yes.
that sort of thing, I think that as somebody who's working essentially as a volunteer under the guise of the school district, you should have coverage there as
We
well.
should have.
Statutorily, not,
Statutorily.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So again, if you're talking about personal, individual
Yeah.
liability, I can look into that though, as well.
Thank you.
I would appreciate your assistance.
No problem.
We also have Blair Littlejohn. Did you have a?
I just say the sovereign immunity is, that just caps liability. It's not a,
Standalone.
it's not a zero, you have no liability. There's still liability up to
$200,000, but I know.
$200,000 per incident, or $300,000 cumulative per incident. So there's,
Just a question,
it just limits it.
because it came up in another, a board that I'm in, and there was an interesting answer on that, so.
We'll talk offline.
Yeah.
Kathy?
I just wanted to say, before we were a little sidetracked about insurance or coverage or whatever that was, I want to thank our Inspector General for what she's done over the years that she's been with us, and we see such efficiency, and I just want to make it public, because I am hugely happy with the outcome and how wonderfully the department is moving, because she's got great employees, but more importantly, the leadership is very evident. So thank you, Ms. Michaels, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much. It is definitely a team effort. I just kind of sign the reports, but they're the ones that actually do all the hard work. So I really can't take too much credit for that. But thank you.
And I understand that you have an awesome department, having worked with them a number of years, but your leadership is very evident.
Thank you.
And I think that's evident by the evaluation that was provided by the committee members, so we agree with that. Is there any other business to come before the board? If not, our next meeting is March 17th. It will be at the normal time of 9 o'clock, not 10. I enjoyed the 10 o'clock because there was no traffic on I-95, but at any rate, if there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second. All in favor? All opposed? Passed 5-0.